In the world of combat sports, some fighters build their legacy on technical brilliance, some on heart, and others on sheer force of will. But every so often, a figure emerges who feels like something else entirely. Not just a fighter, but a force of nature, a modern-day boogeyman. Khamzat Chimaev is that figure. He's been called a specimen, a monster with a relentless, savage energy that seems almost inhuman. His nickname, Borz, is the Chechen word for wolf, and he embodies it perfectly, hunting his opponents with an intensity that feels deeply personal. He doesn't just want to win, he wants to dominate, to break, to, in his own words, take off his head. This terrifying image has made him one of the most talked about athletes in the world. But what if the most dangerous opponent Khamzat Chimaev has ever faced isn't in the octagon? What if it's inside his own body, his own mind, and in the shadows of the powerful men he calls friends? The story of the wolf is far darker and more complex than you've been told. It's a story of a man forged in the crucible of war, whose greatest strengths have become his most profound weaknesses. To understand the wolf, you have to understand the world that created him. Khamzat Chimaev was born in May 1994 in the village of Guardiaskoye, Chechnya. He entered a world already on the brink of chaos. Just months after his birth, the First Chechen War erupted, plunging the region into a brutal conflict with Russia. His entire childhood was framed by war, a landscape of guerrilla warfare, suicide attacks, terrorism, and assassinations. This was not a distant reality seen on the news, it was the air he breathed. In his own words, the experience was jarring, but quickly became normalized. He said, "I was a kid that time, I didn't understand. When you're a kid, first day is hard, makes you scared. The second day, start to become more normal. And then you think in all the world is like that." The aftermath of the wars was just as harsh. A time of scarcity with not so much food. This upbringing left an indelible mark, a psychological scar that he carries to this day. He admitted, "The things you seen when I grow up, it was hard. And sometimes some things go wrong inside. Like get angry and no control." This admission is a critical window into his psyche. The uncontrolled anger he speaks of wasn't just a fleeting emotion, it became a core part of his being. While he rarely speaks about the specifics of his childhood or what precisely pushed his family to leave, it's clear that the trauma of his youth forged both his incredible mental toughness and a dangerous volatility that would define his entire career. With this fire inside him, he looked for an escape and found one in an unlikely place, Sweden. In 2013, at 18 years old, Khamzat and his mother immigrated to Sweden to join his older brother, seeking what he simply called a better life. He carried with him a foundation in wrestling, a sport he began at just 5 years old in Chechnya, where he had already won a bronze medal at the Russian Junior National Championships. In Sweden, he wasted no time channeling his energy into what he knew best. He quickly established himself as one of the best freestyle wrestlers in the country, winning 3 national championships between 2016 and 2018. He found a home at the All-Stars Training Center in Stockholm, Sweden, a gym renowned for producing elite fighters like 3-time UFC title challenger Alexander Gustafsson. It was here that his legendary work ethic became apparent. Gustafsson, a man who fought for a UFC title 3 times, was in awe of Chimaev's drive. He once said, "Khamzat works harder than I ever did," noting that while he maxed out at 3 training sessions a day in his prime, Chimaev was doing 5. He was described as a machine who just doesn't get tired, a welterweight who hits like a heavyweight but moves like a lightweight. But the spark that ignited his MMA career wasn't a lifelong dream of championship glory. It was a moment of pure, pragmatic inspiration. On a 15-minute break from a night job, he watched Conor McGregor's historic victory over Jose Aldo. Seeing the spectacle, the fame, and the money, something clicked. He thought to himself, if the guys make so many money like millions in this stuff, why I can't do it now? I'm a fighter, I'm a warrior, and I have something special inside me. This was the moment the mission crystallized. His ambition was a potent cocktail. The raw survival instinct of a war survivor blended with the clear-eyed capitalistic drive of a man who saw a path to a life he never had. Fueled by a warrior's spirit and a vision for a better life, the machine was activated. He tore through the amateur and regional scenes, but no one could predict the sheer velocity of his impact when he finally reached the UFC's doorstep. Khamzat Chimaev's arrival in the UFC in 2020 wasn't just a debut, it was an invasion. He burst onto the scene with a ferocity that left the MMA world speechless. He submitted John Phillips in his first fight, absorbing only 2 strikes in the process. Then, in an unprecedented move, he stepped back into the octagon just 10 days later. People were stunned. As one commentator put it, "Is this guy even human? Doesn't he need to rest?" In that second fight, he completely dismantled Rhys McKee, landing 68 strikes while absorbing 0. He had set a modern UFC record for the fastest consecutive wins, and he did it with terrifying ease. The hype was instantaneous and overwhelming. Fans and analysts scrambled for a way to describe this new phenomenon. They found their answer in a comparison to another dominant grappler from the Caucasus region, Khabib Nurmagomedov. A meme quickly went viral, dubbing Chimaev the evil Khabib. The parallels were obvious. Same relentless pressure, same grappling dominance, but Chimaev possessed a more savage, aggressive energy. He wasn't just winning, he was mauling his opponents, talking to Dana White mid-fight while choking out Li Jingliang, and starching veteran Gerald Meerschaert with a single brutal punch just 17 seconds into their fight. However, Chimaev himself was reportedly not a fan of the comparison. While the Evil Khabib moniker was a perfect marketing tool for a Western audience, it created a complicated dynamic back home. In the Caucasus, respect for elders and established figures like Khabib is a deeply ingrained cultural code. The nickname, however unintentionally, positioned Chimaev as a dark counterpart, an implicit challenger to the region's most revered champion. The Evil Khabib moniker was perfect for marketing, but it created a shadow he couldn't escape, and soon that shadow would lead to a real-world collision with the very man he was being compared to, a conflict brokered by one of the world's most feared political leaders. As Chimaev's star rose, so did scrutiny of his associations outside the cage. The most significant and controversial of these is his close relationship with Ramzan Kadyrov, the head of the Chechen Republic. Kadyrov is far more than a politician. He is a warlord and dictator who's been sanctioned by the U.S. State Department and accused by international human rights organizations of overseeing a regime of terror, including forced disappearances, extrajudicial killings, and an ongoing purge of Chechnya's LGBTQ+ community. Chimaev's ties to Kadyrov are deep and public. He has been gifted luxury cars, has been seen training Kadyrov's sons, and has even sparred with the dictator himself on camera. In one disturbing instance, Chimaev was reportedly present during a live stream where Kadyrov issued a death threat to a teenage dissident. Kadyrov, who uses his Akhma MMA fight club as a tool for propaganda, has referred to Chimaev as his favorite fighter, and even claimed he personally persuaded him not to retire. This association isn't a simple friendship. It's a complex entanglement where Chimaev serves as a powerful symbol for Kadyrov's regime, laundering his image on the world stage. For Chimaev, the benefits are material, but the cost is a moral compromise that has drawn widespread criticism, with many speculating that he has little choice but to play along to protect himself and his family. This political pressure cooker came to a boil through his conflict with Khabib Nurmagomedov's camp. Fueled by the evil Khabib narrative and his own aggressive persona, Chimaev made online comments about smashing the retired undefeated champion. This was seen as a grave sign of disrespect and ignited a firestorm, even drawing a rebuke from his own mother. The beef escalated from online talk to a physical altercation at UFC 280, where Chimaev and Khabib's cousin, Abubakar Nurmagomedov, came to blows cageside and had to be separated. The situation was so tense that a truce had to be publicly brokered, and the mediators were none other than Khabib and Ramzan Kadyrov, who posted a screenshot of a video call where he personally oversaw the reconciliation. It was a stunning display of power, showing that Chimaev's actions were being monitored and controlled by forces far beyond the octagon. Forced into a public peace by a dictator, Chimaev was navigating pressures far beyond the octagon, but as he wrestled with these external demons, an even more insidious enemy was attacking him from within.
The unstoppable machine was breaking down. In late 2020, Chimaev contracted a severe case of COVID-19 that brought his meteoric rise to a screeching halt. The virus ravaged his body, leading to multiple hospitalizations and severe, lingering lung complications. The situation became so dire that he posted a shocking photo of blood in a sink, and it was later revealed he had been coughing up blood. Believing his career was over, he emotionally announced his retirement from MMA. He later revealed the depth of his fear, stating he thought a doctor had told him he had cancer. The fear wasn't for himself, but for his family. "I never scared about my life," he said. "I scared about what my mom gonna do after I die." This health crisis was not a one-time event. It marked the beginning of a disturbing pattern of persistent and violent illnesses that have plagued his career ever since. He has been in and out of hospitals, forced to pull out of major fights, and has posted and then deleted concerning images of himself covered in rashes and appearing gravely ill. The man who trained with an inhuman intensity was being betrayed by his own body. His greatest asset, his relentless work ethic, had become his greatest liability. After his initial COVID diagnosis, he ignored doctors' advice and immediately returned to his grueling training regimen, causing immense damage. His training partner, Alexander Gustafsson, suggested that Chimaev's body has a severe reaction to hard training, triggering a whole different level of illness that goes beyond simple overtraining, possibly an autoimmune response exacerbated by his refusal to rest. At the same time he was battling for his own health, he was facing another, even more profound struggle at home. His young son was born with a serious kidney problem, requiring multiple surgeries. This experience reshaped his perspective entirely. "When it's your kid, it's different," Chimaev explained. "For me, most important is my family, not the fighting game." The weight of this responsibility forced a change in him, a shift from the reckless warrior to a concerned father. "Before I was crazy," he admitted. "Now before I do anything, I think about if my son grows up, how's he gonna see me?" The boogeyman was afraid. The unstoppable machine was breaking down. As Chimaev battled for his health and his family, his public image was about to take its biggest hits yet, leading many fans to turn on him completely. As Chimaev's activity stalled due to illness, fan perception began to shift. The beloved phenom was becoming a frustrating enigma. That frustration boiled over into outright animosity during the lead-up to UFC 279. Scheduled to face fan favorite Nate Diaz in a massive main event, Chimaev missed weight by a shocking 7.5 pounds, an almost unheard-of margin for a title contender. The blunder forced the UFC to frantically reshuffle the entire pay-per-view card just one day before the event. What truly alienated the public, however, was his reaction. On the scales, he simply shrugged, smiled, and flipped off the booing crowd, showing a complete lack of remorse. His own coach later called the miss absolutely unprofessional. The incident drew sharp criticism from Khabib Nurmagomedov, who diagnosed the problem not as a simple mistake, but a lack of discipline and proper guidance, stating Chimaev had no Muslims around him, a comment interpreted as a critique of his unstable support system. The controversy was compounded in his rescheduled fight against Kevin Holland, where he was accused of a fake glove touch to secure an immediate takedown. Just as his professional integrity was being questioned, his personal integrity took an even bigger hit. Chimaev and his teammate Darren Till had launched the Smash Bros brand, which included an NFT collection with a company called Block Asset. Soon after, allegations of a crypto scam surfaced. Chimaev heavily promoted a meme coin called Smash, which saw its value skyrocket before plummeting by over 90% in 24 hours after a massive sell-off. Crypto investigators alleged it was a classic pump-and-dump scheme, a rug pull that may have netted Chimaev and his team up to $1 million from their own fans. The fallout was brutal. One report called it a morally reprehensible act that painted a picture of a desperate man easily manipulated. His body was failing him, his public image was in tatters, and now his integrity was being questioned. With his career hanging by a thread, the UFC has given the wolf one more chance to hunt. But the question remains, is there anything left to give? The journey of Khamzat Chimaev is a story of profound contradiction. He is the undefeated, unstoppable force of nature who is also perpetually unwell and unreliable. He is the product of a war-torn land who found fame and fortune only to become entangled with the very political forces he once fled. He is the warrior whose inhuman drive forged him into a phenom, but now that same drive is breaking his body from the inside out. His career has been a series of explosive highs and devastating lows. The hype that surrounded his 10-day, 2-fight demolition tour has been replaced by questions about his cardio, his discipline, and his health. The brutal war with Gilbert Burns proved he had heart, but it also exposed the first cracks in his seemingly infinite gas tank. Now he is set to face Dricus du Plessis for the UFC middleweight championship, the opportunity he has been chasing his entire career. This fight is his ultimate test, but his opponent is not just the man standing across the octagon. He is fighting against his own body, his own chaotic impulses, and the weight of a life lived at the extremes. Khamzat Chimaev was forged by war and driven by a relentless need to dominate. But can a man who only knows how to go forward survive a battle that requires him to stand still and heal? His next fight will determine his legacy. Will he be remembered as a champion or as the most terrifying what-if in UFC history?